Raise your hand if you have experienced a form of corporal punishment while growing up. Okay. We're surrounded by friends. We can give a few secrets. Corporal punishment is physical punishment, enacted by society to teach us its values, its rules. And some of that might be educational discipline, some of that might be religious discipline. When we look at some roots of corporal punishment implemented in ancient civilizations, we see Egypt, China, Greece, and Rome. But between the 1950s and the 1970s, there's a global discussion around human rights. And that includes children's rights. And because of that, today, 65 countries have banned corporal punishment in the judicial system, in the school system, and even in the homes. Now, most of these countries are in Europe and Latin America, so let's take a little gander to the Western Hemisphere, where corporal punishment has many names, depending on your race, ethnicity, culture, or geography. And let's talk about the South, where you hear words like smack, slap, pop, spanking. But in black culture, we just use the word whooped. You got whooped. A whooping. And there are some historical connotations on how enslaved people were treated and how that physical punishment translates into some black households. But we didn't dress up our corporal punishment and put lipstick on it or butter it up. It was what it was. It didn't sound like Rice Krispies in the morning. It was just a whooping. And it makes me think of my grandmother, Sharon Scavella. My grandma Sharon had a black belt. Not a martial arts, just some discipline. She literally had a black belt and a brown belt, and she wasn't afraid to use it, not only on her children, but her grandchildren. Belts, switches, shoes, spatulas, spoons, hangers, extension cords. Some might say she was creative. There was one time she whooped me with a number 2 pencil. And I have never taken a standardized test the same again. Growing up, my mom wanted to make a difference. She wanted to teach me and my sister how to sit, reflect, critically think. She wanted to change some of those historical dynamics. Until one day, I drug her to the dark side. I was 6 or 7 years old, walking in a Walgreens with my mom, and I see in the corner of my eye a disposable Polaroid camera. Now, for those who are under 23, this thing was amazing. Before there were smartphones, you bought this disposable camera, you had a limited number of pictures you could take, and you brought that film to get it developed to get your photos. So I grabbed my mom's hand and I said, "Mom, can I have this?" And she looked at me and said, "Maybe later." And I knew, even as a 6-year-old, that meant never going to happen. So she walks away, and I do what any self-respecting 6-year-old would do. I took matters into my own hands. I stole that digital portable camera. And my brother Chris taught me years ago that it was called a 5-finger discount. Yeah. Not only did I steal that camera, but I shoved it in my pants. We walked to the register, no issues. We walked through the door of the Walgreens, no bells, no whistles, no alarms. I'm walking on sunshine. Oh. So happy, so joyful. As my mom puts the groceries in the car, I feel a little tingle. I gotta pee. And in that moment, my mom is taking off my belt, she's unbuckling my pants so that I can pee behind a tree. And at the bottom of this 6-year-old leg, the bottom of my pants, this bulky rectangular shape is on the top of my shoe. And she says, "What is this?" She pulls up my pants and the Polaroid camera falls out. She snatches the camera, she snatches me, tosses me in the car, and we drive away. I got the worst whooping in my life. And as she is swapping me left and right, she says the worst thing that I think I've ever heard my mom say, This hurts me more than you. Whoever came up with that phrase, bless their heart. After receiving the worst whooping of my life, she puts the camera on the top of her shelf in her closet, kicks me out. I cry, no one came to help, none of my brothers. And the next day, I calmed down, I had resolve, and I realized Mom was at work the next day. So I bust in her room, I gather those milk carts, I stack them together, and I climb those things. And I am inches away from what I want. And as I'm getting closer, leaning forward and backwards, my oldest brother, Roger, bursts into the room, grabs me, because I'm once again 6, tosses me on my mom's mattress. And I am pissed, furious, yelling, injustice has been taken upon me. And in that moment, he says, calm down, I'm gonna get the camera for you. And I thought, oh my God, I have an ally. I have a co-conspirator. He gets me. He gets the camera, and he says, I'm gonna take a picture of you. And I stand there on mom's mattress. Spine straight, chest out. Best picture day of my life. The camera flashes, and then he sprints away. He stole my stolen goods. In that moment, thinking about it, I realized that corporal punishment may not have been enough in that moment. Perhaps it was accountability. In that moment, I realized that it was thoughtless of me to steal that camera, but it was devastating to be stolen from. So I think about that story. No one is perfect. I'm not perfect for the actions I took, nor the impatience I demonstrated. My mom isn't perfect for not taking the camera back to the store. My brother is definitely not perfect for stealing my stolen goods. But as I wrap up this story, I think about an iconic quote from a phenomenal movie called Kung Fu Panda. And the old turtle says in that movie, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present. And when I think about that quote in regards to this theme, I think sometimes when we are busted, we are upset, we're frustrated, we're not happy in that moment, but that person may have spared us from a path that we were unprepared to take. Perhaps it was better that I was busted by my mom than behind bars. Perhaps it was better that I was busted rather than buried 6 feet under. Because growing up in Miami, Florida, and seeing what happened in Miami, to Ocilla, Georgia, in Tifton, Georgia, and even in Athens, those aren't hypotheticals in the background that I have and the people I've seen take those paths. So next time you think about the person who busted you yesterday, they might be presenting a blessing in the present. Thank you.